In an age when gods walked among mortals, a story was etched into the stars, a tale of a hero's courage and a priestess's tragic fall. It began not with a sword, but with a vow of devotion in a temple shimmering with divine light. Here, within the hallowed halls of Athena, lived Medusa, a maiden whose beauty was surpassed only by her faith. Her hair, a river of gold, and her eyes, pools of serene devotion, reflected a soul dedicated to the goddess of wisdom. Mortals and even gods whispered of her loveliness, but her heart belonged to the sacred sanctuary she served. Yet, beauty in the mortal realm can be a fragile gift, often attracting darkness as much as it does light. The sea god, Poseidon, his heart stirred by a tempest of desire, saw Medusa not as a servant of the divine, but as a prize to be claimed. He pursued her, whose power a relentless tide against her mortal will. She fled to the one place she believed herself safe, the altar of Athena. But even sacred ground could not shield her from the god's unyielding advance. In the heart of the temple, a sacred vow was broken, and innocence was lost. When the goddess Athena discovered the desecration of her sacred space, her divine eyes did not see the terror in Medusa's soul, nor the tears that stained her cheeks. She saw only the stain upon her temple, the broken law. A cold, righteous fury, born of what of pride, descended upon the goddess. And her judgment, swift and terrible, was not directed at the powerful god who had forced his will, but upon the mortal victim. In that moment the universe held its breath. Athena's curse twisted the very fabric of Medusa's being. The golden hair that once cascaded down her back writhed and hissed, transforming into a nest of venomous snakes. Her skin, once smooth and fair, took on a ghastly reptilian hue, and her eyes, those windows to a once pious soul, were now cursed with a horrifying power. Any living creature that met her gaze would be instantly turned to stone, their life frozen in an eternal monument of terror. Cast out from the world she knew, banished to a desolate, lonely island at the edge of the world, Medusa became a monster. Her name, once whispered in admiration, was now spoken with fear. She was no longer a woman, but a gorgon, a creature of nightmare. The garden of her island became a silent testament to her curse, filled with the stone figures of warriors and heroes who had foolishly sought to claim her head as a trophy. Each statue was a reminder of her isolation, a testament to the life she could never again touch. In her solitude, did she weep? Did her heart, trapped within that monstrous form, still remember the gentle priestess she once was? The stories often forget to ask. They speak only of the monster, not the maiden trapped inside. Her gaze, which turned all to stone, was perhaps a reflection of her own frozen heart, locked away by betrayal and injustice. She lived in a world where to be seen was to destroy, a cruel parody of her former life where her beauty had invited ruin. Meanwhile, far across the sea, another destiny was unfolding. Perseus, a young hero born of a divine father and a mortal mother, was sent on an impossible quest. An arrogant king, Polydex, demanded the head of Medusa, believing the task would lead to the hero's certain demise. Yet, the gods favored Perseus. From Hermes he received winged sandals to soar through the heavens. From Athena herself, the very goddess who had cursed Medusa, he was given a polished bronze shield, as reflective as a mirror. And from Hades, a helmet of invisibility. He was armed not just with weapons, but with divine tools, each one a piece of a celestial puzzle. Guided by the gods, Perseus flew to the ends of the earth, to the sunless land where the Gorgons dwelled. He did not approach Medusa with brute force, for he knew the power of her gaze. He was a hero not of strength alone, but of wisdom. Using the reflection in his polished shield, he navigated the garden of stone figures, each one a grim warning. He saw her not directly, but through the shimmering bronze. He saw a creature of sorrow and rage, her serpent hair twisting in agitation. He saw the monster, but in the mirrored surface, was it possible he also saw a distorted image of the woman she had been? The shield, a gift from Athena, became the instrument that would end the life of the very being she had created. The irony was as sharp as the hero's blade. With his back turned, guided only by the reflection, Perseus approached. Medusa, sensing his presence, rose with a hiss, her snake hair writhing, her eyes searching for the intruder. For a fleeting moment, one could almost imagine a flicker of exhaustion in her cursed gaze, a weariness from an eternity of solitude and fear. But she was a monster now, and her only instinct was to protect herself. As she turned, Perseus, guided by the image in the shield, swung his sword. In one swift, tragic motion, the head of Medusa was severed, and from her neck a strange and miraculous birth occurred. Out sprang Pegasus, the magnificent winged horse, and Chrysaor, a warrior with a golden sword. It was as if the life and beauty that had been locked away within her were finally released, bursting forth in a form of pure magic and power. Even in death, a part of Medusa's lost innocence was reborn into the world. Perseus placed the head in a special satchel, its terrible power contained. The eyes, even in death, held their petrifying curse. He used this power on his journey home, turning his enemies to stone, including the wicked King Polydex. The head of the monster became a hero's weapon. Finally, he returned to Athena and presented her with the head. She, in turn, placed it upon her own shield, the Aegis, a symbol of her power and a terrifying weapon against her enemies. The victim's curse had become the goddess's emblem. And so the tale of Perseus and Medusa was carved into history. A story of a hero's triumph, but is that all it is? Look deeper past the glory of the victor, and you will find a story of profound tragedy. A story about how we perceive monsters. We see the terrifying gaze, the serpent hair, the power to destroy, but we often fail to see the story behind the curse. We do not see the innocent maiden, the broken vow, the unjust punishment. Medusa was not born a monster, she was made one. Her story is a timeless echo, a reminder that the line between victim and villain is often drawn by those in power. Her curse was a reflection of the world's cruelty, not her own. The gaze that turned others to stone was perhaps a mirror of the hearts that had already turned to stone against her. In our own lives, we encounter people we label as monsters. We judge them by their anger, their bitterness, their defensive walls. But how often do we ask what transformed them? What pain, what betrayal, what injustice forged the armor they wear? The story of Medusa is not just a myth. It is a profound spiritual lesson. It calls us to look beyond the surface, to approach others not with a sword, but with a mirror of compassion. It asks us to see the humanity that may be trapped within the monster. For true wisdom is not about slaying the beasts we find in the world, but about understanding the wounds that created them. It is the courage to look at the reflection of our shared humanity, even in its most broken forms, and to remember that even after the deepest betrayal from the greatest tragedy, something beautiful and free can still be born. Light is never truly lost. It is only waiting to be reborn. Thank you for joining us on this journey. Subscribe to God Story Reborn for more stories of light and rebirth.